Okay.
Hi, my name is Marcus Rothgrantz. I'm with BeautifyLife.com and GoRawNow.com, and I have with me somebody that I've waited a long time to actually be with, and I'm really honored to be with this guy. I really don't hang out with a lot of people. This is one guy I've really looked forward to being with because he's real. He's a real guy. He's down to earth. He doesn't have a lot of products to sell, and he's Don, you've traveled the world, right? You've gone like, what, 4 million miles?
Yeah, that's true.
And you've been in all the pyramids, all the temples of the world. You found old scrolls and scriptures. You've studied everything there is to know about what's out there. And you have found, probably over all this, you've seen patterns and stuff. Yeah. And you've started seeing things reoccurring and lots of fascinating things, and a lot of it has to do with the truth of what everything that the God design of everything.
I've seen some things, you know, and Marcus, I just want to say thank you for spending time with me. It's so wonderful for me to have a friend like you. I've never met a more genius, brilliant person in my life, and yet such a heart that you don't float around with this big ego and everything, and I appreciate that you're real and you're honest and you're true.
I like to travel light.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the secret of health, is you get rid of crap. It's not how much you accumulate, it's how much you get rid of.
And I think that's true too.
Yeah.
In fact, house cleaning is something that a lot of people don't understand anymore. We're so academically indoctrinated through the media and what we call education and factory schooling that we've forgotten that it really does matter what it is that you bring as offerings into the inner kingdom.
Right.
And, you know, I've been called the cowboy of whole plant food medicine. I've been called the Indiana Jones of whole foods. And it's because I have gone all around the world, and I've lived amongst the Tarahumara and the Paiutes and others. And to know that there are long-lived cultures that are disease-free. They don't have 561,000 patented medical drugs. They don't have doctors giving unnecessary surgeries. None of them have ever been immunized. And they're fine. Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of people to believe, but what it really did for me is that for the last 40 years in the public arena, I've been about what I call the revolution of self-care and self-education.
You have to do it yourself.
You really do.
And so you were saying earlier something that was fascinating, and I think you should repeat. You mentioned the scrolls and the. Tell me the story you said earlier about the.
About Edmund Bordeaux-Zaquet and the Essene Gospel of Peace. It's really interesting. When I first met him, it was in Canada, where he had actually escaped out of Vatican City.
Who is he?
He's the guy that actually started the modern day Essene movement. Mm-hmm. And he did a transliteration of a scroll that he and two of his friends who were monks in the city had at night found out that the archbishops and everyone else had determined they were pulling in train cars and going to load them up with ancient scrolls and burn them, because the things that they had in it revealed something quite different than what it was that they were teaching and preaching. So they wanted it gone, and they ran out and jumped into the boxcars, threw scrolls out on the ground, grabbed them, and ran for their lives. And eventually translated some of those scrolls, which people now know as the Essene Gospel of Peace, which talks about the idea of living temple work, that you are the temple, not some brick and mortar building.
Right.
And that all of those were just symbols of you. And every ancient temple, from the Teocallis amongst the Inca, you go through the Oriental countries, you go to Solomon's temple, they always had two pillars out front. And the two pillars were interesting because in their own languages, they stood for one shall establish, the other shall add splendor and light. It's like Solomon's temple. The one pillar was called Joaquin in the Hebrew, the other was Boaz, which means to establish, to add splendor. And a lot of people don't realize that it was talking about, and they always had it right out the front of the temple, the face, in the open door, the mouth, and it literally means fruit and vegetables. If you look up in a pre-1940 dictionary, the word vegetable means to establish and strengthen. The word fruit means to enliven and to add splendor. And most people just don't know these kinds of things. But when you begin to bring into the temple fruits and vegetables, whole plant foods, and that kind of a diet, which is Latin for diet, which means leads to good or to God. The cosmic design and downloading memories and records that we have within. In fact, I believe you can never learn anything new. You already know all there is to know, and it's just remembrance.
That's all I do is remind people of what they already know.
Yeah.
Tell us about the origin of the word raw food.
Yeah, raw food actually goes back to the ancient Swinwet, which were the lady healers of Egypt. And the foods that they taught the people to eat were the foods of Ra, which was their word for the sun. And so it was Ra. Later, in about the 1100s, they threw the W on there and made it Ra because they didn't want people thinking the sun was good or God. That light was intelligence, was their ancient message, and that plants take that in, and we take the plants in, it releases intelligence in you. It opens up the memories of what you have.
And if you switch the word Ra backwards?
You spell Ra today, spelling backwards, it means war. And so when you kill things with too much heat, and there are certain foods you can heat that doesn't cause war or chaos, but there are others you should never heat. I mean, you really shouldn't barbecue watermelon. You know? And so it was just a brilliant wisdom of the past. It was like the word evol, which means constant change, like evolution or evolution. Love was simply a word that was a reverse spelling of that, that meant constant, unchanging.
And that is something that is constant forever. So if you don't eat raw, you're at war.
And you won't experience constancy or a spirit of love. You'll be in chaos, fight, conflict.
And this world is about as messed up as it can get right now, and people are wondering,
I think it's true.
What do we do? We're lost, you know. So what we're doing is so important because we have to get the message out there to people as to just reminding them what they already know, or they're actually afraid. It's amazing how afraid people are to do what they know is the right thing to do. It's because they've lost touch. I mean, it's amazing how people are afraid to eat an apple.
I know.
But they'll eat something out of a box before they eat something that's natural. You know?
And it's because we've been lied to through all kinds of marketing. The dirt's no good, you know, and therefore the food's no good. Plants use water and sunlight to synthesize every element, every enzyme, every protein, every vitamin that it needs to become itself.
And,
that's it.
And light is more than just light. It's energy. It's on an energetic level in the universe. It's the truth.
It is. It's pure intelligence. It is the truth. That's what it is. And whenever, you know, people use violence, you bludgeon the head of a fish on the side of a boat so you can cut its guts out and chew on it, and put a bullet through the brain of an animal or slice its throat. We've got to start to wake up and realize we're doing some things that may not be to the benefit of the human experience.
And energetically, not just that, but also how we relate to other people. We can do things energetically that, I guess some people call it karma, whatever. You do things, even in a relationship, when you're with somebody, you can do things that harm yourself. If you're not honest with yourself or the other person, you lie, you hold things back. That's part of health too, is being... you have to be honest. You have to be open because if you're not honest with anything outside of yourself, then you're not honest with yourself. Because they're just mirrors of you.
And that was the beautiful thing about the apple. And why that phrase came down for thousands of years, that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. You don't need them if you're eating an apple a day. And yet, how many people will do that? You slice an apple, you see a perfect five-pointed star. And they realize that we are designed in the shape of a five-pointed star. And so one of the cultures in antiquity, and then transliterated into the Latin, was Citius, meaning swifter mentally, Altius, higher emotionally, Fortius, stronger physically, Socius moneta. The Socius moneta was what gives us legs to stand on and walk through our lives and fulfill ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally, which was referred to as the spiritual life. The word spirit means breath or to breathe. That you would breathe life, mental, physical, strength. And in your relationships, moneta meant trust. You can trust something as simple as an apple to heal and to maintain and to keep you.
So what would you say, I mean, there are a million reasons, but in a general sense, fear is what's screwing up the world. You know, people go to war or have relationship problems because they just don't understand the other side. If they could put themselves in the other person's place, they probably wouldn't be at war with them. So with all the money problems in the world and all the health problems and the environmental issues, what would you say as a starting advice to people? From everything that you've seen around the world, what would you say would be a good starting point?
Simplicity. When things get complex, they're not true. Truth is always so simple,
right.
A child can understand it.
An animal can understand it.
An animal can understand
it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Be simple. Be very, very, very simple in everything that you do.
And all these people that have all these anxieties and worries all day long, their mind is just chattering.
Yeah. Their life is just complex. If you have to get a tent and a backpack and walk out of town and go stay out somewhere, calm down, stay there 2 weeks, 2 months, learn that you can live without all of this. Yeah. But then if you want all of this, make the decision as to how to have it in staying true to yourself. If you don't belong in a cubicle and taking Prozac to try to keep yourself happy, don't do that. Stop it. Be true to yourself. Be simple.
Let's talk relationships. This is my favorite subject.
Yeah.
Because food, I mean, that's basic. I mean, we all kind of know. Eat the way stuff's found in nature. Don't process it, don't cook it, don't kill it.
Simple.
That's simple. I think everybody gets that part. And no, that does not include raw meat. You're right.
Yeah. No.
I just keep having to say that to people.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Something that's more complex, that's kind of befuddling to people, is relationships. Because you're dealing with another complex brain full of anxieties that you're trying to have a relationship with, and not just personally, but also in the world, with who you're working with other cultures. Give us some profound...
You know, it's interesting, this whole thing of relationships, and it really is founded upon trust. And in the ancient world, they realized that as they established communities, that they had to trust one another. So they created tokens of remembrance, that the people would remember trust. And so then they could use that token as a medium of exchange for goods and services founded on trust with one another.
And bartering.
And and they originally chose salt to represent human trust. In fact, the word salary means to be worth your salt. Then eventually the alchemists and others, the scholars amongst them, the real thinkers and genius, not the academics, not the good little chant learners, and but those who really thought, chose gold, because they knew that gold, when it melts down, if it comes back together, it's pure and more valuable, and relationships are like that. If trust is broken in a relationship, the value is gone.
Right.
But you can forgive and forget and meld it back together, and now you have a stronger relationship than you did before, and therefore it is more valuable.
Now, usually the trust is not necessarily with the other person, so a lot of times it's trusting yourself. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. And trusting that they love you.
Right. It's just, they're just a mirror of you. Whatever you like or don't like about them is probably what you don't like about yourself. And
it's interesting.
If you distrust somebody, why would you be distrusting if you didn't know what distrust was? Right? So you're probably distrusting something in yourself.
I think that's true. And you know the whole thing about gold? They realized you could only find gold where there's water or where water once was. That's why when they built the buildings to store the gold, to represent the tokens of remembrance and trust, they called it the banks, after the banks of the river. That's where the currency flowed and deposited the nuggets. That's why we float loans. That's why there's frozen assets. That's why we flood the market. There's over 80 words talking about money. It sounds like you're talking about water, because trust in relationship is like water to a wilted plant. It brings it back.
And water is emotion.
That's it.
Yeah. So when you're dealing lately, what do you find yourself talking about the most, or keep going back to as far as your subject matter of conversation with people?
You know, this thing of emotion in relationship is getting more and more and more important to people, because so many relationships just are coming undone. And I think the biggest thing is touch. Intimacy.
I agree. Totally agree.
Just, I mean, you can be going off, and if you'll just calm down and go in and knock one out, you're back. You're back.
I totally agree.
True?
Now, what about if their mind is just too chattery and worried about daily, like what they have to do tomorrow, what their bills are doing? Yeah. There's got to be an off switch somewhere.
Yeah. People need an emotional enema.
Exactly.
And a mental enema.
Exactly.
And the way that you do that, honestly, you do it just like they did in the ancient world. You go out and you go for a walk. That cross-patterning movement electrifies the brain. Movement. And the brain's in charge of breathing.
Sunlight,
and
movement.
That breathing, you get out in the sunlight and you're moving. Life is movement. Life emotionally, life mentally.
Right.
You're upset and coming undone. You don't know who you are. Just shut up and go for a walk. Within 5 minutes, you don't even remember what you're upset about.
When people sit still and they're just mopey and they don't move,
that's it.
They die. They're slowly rotting away.
That's it.
And when you get up and start moving, like sometimes I just like to go for a drive. Just
windshield time.
Yeah.
It just lets it go.
Yeah.
Yep.
You see the world going by and you're just going from A to B and you feel like you're making progress.
Yeah.
Progress is seeing something going by.
I mean, how many times do you have your best ideas when you're driving?
I get my best ideas when I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
When I'm not home. When I'm actually out there doing something, and I'm not sitting. Because when I work out of my home, this is my studio. And when I sit here, it's like, okay, I'm here. I have to work, and then it's like you almost feel pressured to have to accomplish something.
Yeah.
But when you're on vacation, there's no pressure to accomplish anything, and that's when your guard is down. That's all the good stuff starts coming to you. And I can't write it down fast enough. I have a notepad with me.
Yeah. And in that, and being honest to yourself and giving yourself that renewal time, that's critical.
It's very important.
And in relationships, when they used to say that when people were in love, they had stars in their eyes.
Yeah.
But that actually goes back as far as the Temple of On in Heliopolis, the Temple of Light in the City of the Sun. When in the mornings and the evening, they would place their hand on the horizon, and they knew that they could look directly into the sun until it hit 10 degrees with no damage or problems, and that was stargazing or sun gazing.
Sun gazing, yeah.
And if people would do that, the neurochemistry of the brain is reestablished, and they become balanced emotionally.
This is what next question I ask you, because you're famous for being able to teach 5-year-olds how to read the alphabet and like that, backwards and forwards, and how to have people read a book and memorize it within an hour. So this is working. There's a left side of the brain and a right side of the brain. They're usually fighting each other, right? They're usually like man and woman. So you have to find peace. They have to work together as one, and you've found a way to do that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it actually came from the ancient world. They knew that when your eyes shift in or out, and today it's referred to as diffused vision or convergent vision. And a lot of people might remember the dot matrix posters back in the 90s when you looked at them with the eyes crossed or out, they become 3D.
Right.
Well, I was the first one to introduce those as posters into the modern world, and it came because of what I'd seen in these ancient archives. Artists like yourself and stonecutters work together, and so there are petroglyphs and hieroglyphs in stone that if you don't go into that diffused state, you really don't see the hidden message.
So they're like the original 3D images.
Yeah, it was. And now we know in REM or theta wave of the brain, when you sleep at night, your eyes go into diffusion and convergence, and that's what allows you to dream. Well, children do that 90% of their waking hours, and that's why they have imaginary friends. They actually see them.
Yeah.
Because they're dreaming while they're awake.
Right.
And we lose that when we go to school and we're taught, hey, stop daydreaming.
Right.
Hey, pay attention.
I know.
Focus.
Oh, damn.
And you got to chant, learn this stuff. That's the worst thing we have ever done.
Yeah.
To the majority of the masses. We've got to stop it. We've got to get back to self-education.
Exactly.
Education means a deepening of insight.
So on a practical level, how do we get that state of brain? Where is it looking at your posters, or is there something that people can do?
Yeah, there are things that you can do. And a lot of times when people go in and they go to the bathroom and they're just sitting there, sometimes they see the tiles and they just naturally go into it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you're driving in a car.
I naturally
That's
do
why
that,
it's windshield time.
Yeah.
You're actually going off into that, and you're actually safer driving like that because you can respond faster to something that's going on than you can when you're focused.
Right.
And they actually have studies on this. If you're looking right at something, you're going to drive right into it.
Right, because you're attracting to it.
Yeah, that's it. If couples would take the time to sit and to look into one another's eyes.
Exactly.
And just stare.
Yeah.
If they would do it every single day. If they would just do that for 3 minutes and look into each other's eyes, they would tear up. Their hearts would swell. They would love, they would embrace, they would touch, they would be intimate.
That's more important.
How many people, they get up in the morning, they're busy, they got to go to work, they got to get this done, they got to run out, and they don't even look at each other. They're sitting there at a dinner table out at a restaurant, they're not even looking.
I know.
How many parents will not sit down and put their hands on the face of their child and just look into their eyes? If families would make that a habit, starting when the child is just young,
everything changes.
families would not fall apart. They wouldn't all of a sudden become rebellious little snots that want to run out and sneak and hide and do. It's not like that. They have broken and shattered hearts. And they're lost. Right in their own home, in their own family. And that's what happens to most couples.
In their own body.
They become lost.
Yeah. And this is the most important message that I give to people, more than the raw food, more than anything, is exactly what you just said. It's got to be that personal connection between them and yourself.
That kind of passion can overcome laziness. It can overcome a rotten diet. It can overcome the fact you don't move. Passion like that is everything.
You're connecting with divine, with God. And when you're inspired, God comes through you, and let's say you have money problems, let's say you have health problems, it'll tell you what to do. You'll feel so good. Bam, the answer will come to you. Whereas if you're depressed, your blockage, you have blockage, that the truth of what you're supposed to do to heal yourself of whatever your problem is isn't going to come through.
Yeah. And medical drugs are not the answer. You got on a Prozac, it's the #1 cause of suicide.
I know.
Because you're not fixing anything.
It's blocking the symptoms, but it's not taking care of anything. You're just causing more blockages.
That's it.
So that's got to be the most important 5 minutes, 20 minutes of the day. And I think it should be mandatory. I think that's like the one thing they should teach people.
Yeah. We've forgotten. It used to be a part of our lives.
And it's not just a selfish physical gratification that we have with somebody.
No.
It's connecting with the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
And that is the gift of God.
That's it. All 10,000 trillion cells that you brought forth at the moment of birth and that first breath have one purpose and one reason to be there. And that's to maintain you at the highest levels of mental and physical and emotional and social height. That is their design and purpose. And if we simply support them by breathing clean air that moves, water, walking, sunshine,
the basics,
whole foods, touch, non-toxic relationship that you can make untoxic by getting back to looking in each other's eyes.
So when people have problems in relationships, the answer is not to run away and find someone else.
No.
Because you're going to have the same issue. It never is. You're taking the problems with you. And it's just going to happen again.
Do it again.
Right. So I figured, just roll up your sleeves and deal with it. Look the problem in the eyes.
In the eyes.
You know, if you think that person's the problem, look the problem in the eyes.
Yeah.
And it'll shine back to you the truth.
And if it's too intense for you to even communicate, don't. Just hold each other's face.
Right.
And look at each other's eyes.
Exactly.
And you watch the hate, the anger,
it's
the
hard.
upset.
Yeah.
It'll all of a sudden just all melting down, and all of a sudden you'll find after 3 to 5 minutes tears running down your cheeks, and you'll be kissing and loving one another, and you're healing and patching the holes.
Yeah, that to me is more important than food.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the highest food.
Now you've traveled and you've met all kinds of people all over the world. You've seen all kinds of cultures.
Yeah.
And after seeing what the people that live a long, long life, what do you see as their main thing? Is it what we just talked about? I mean, obviously they all have different diets.
Sure.
They have things that are similar.
But they're all eating in the local region to themselves. They understand plants. They know the signatures. Sliced carrot looks like the eye, good for the eye. Celery looks like a bone, snaps like a bone, good for the bone. They understand these things. But the thing that they do, and I have many friends who are Aboriginal, Maori, Tarahumare, and they all have the most beautiful thing that they do with one another. Just like the Maori, they walk right up to each other and put their nose right on each other, and they look each other in the eyes. They still do it to this day. You go down to New Zealand, and you connect with the Maori. They have what they call the Watchers, and they see your heart. They see who you are. And if a Watcher comes up and does that, you're a part of their community. And it's probably one of the most thrilling things for me. I was actually on stage down in Wellington, and they had 3 Watchers there. And the Watchers just walked right up on stage, walked me over to the side, and did a Maori dance and song, and then pulled me back and did the nose thing. And when you go to these families and you see the touch, the love, the looking in the eyes, and there are other cultures that do the same thing, others in different kinds of ways. But we've got to get back to it.
So is it true that people that are single don't live as long? People that have beautiful, loving relationships do
they actually do live longer.
Yeah.
And another thing we've forgotten is fire. The best thing, if you don't have a fire pit where you are, you need to go and get one of those metal ones in a rack that you can set out on your balcony or your deck and have a fire.
Just burning, just to have the energy of the fire.
And just get your loved ones, your friends,
the crackling sound,
and sit around the fire and look at the fire.
There's something about looking at it.
There is.
It goes in your eyes. There's a frequency and energy.
And all of these long-lived cultures that are so happy and so lasting, they have fire every night.
But don't cook your food with it.
And the touch.
Right, exactly. It's fire in the heart.
Yeah. And these long-lived cultures that you never hear about, they know that foods grow under the ground and on the ground and above the ground, and that those are the true offerings to the body.
Right. Exactly.
That's why they are disease-free.
That's great. And we don't hear about them because they don't have any ego to have to brag about their lifestyles, and you know, they're just quietly living their lives, and we don't even know about them. So our job is to tell these people that they're out there. Yeah. There are people happily, quietly, they're so content. They don't have to get on TV to brag about it.
Yeah, they don't.
They just have their wonderful little life, and they're probably outliving most of us 2 to 1.
Yes, they are. Yes, yeah. I think most people would be very shocked at how long these people live.
So tell me, give these people some idea of how long a human being can live.
You know, it's interesting because I have met people whose ages are between 130, 150 years old. They're there.
Yeah.
And the pharmaceutical, medical, industrial, military complex does not allow typically those who have been academically indoctrinated and receive a degree of doctorate to talk about or to even go amongst and study and explore or publish. And it's called publishing prejudice, and it does exist in the medical and media in the communities. It's very controlled. Here in the United States, we take more medical drugs than all of the countries put together. And yet the Surgeon General of the United States has declared just 4 years ago that we're the sickliest generation of Americans to have ever lived.
We're the unhealthiest country in the world, and we're the richest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We harm and kill more babies before age 3 than any other country.
So what's your answer to these big scare of having to vaccinate everybody, this whole...
Absolute medical myth and lie. It's a scam. It's a marketing scam. When people feel nauseous, or they have the runs, or they have a headache, that's the body's own physiology and innate intelligence cleaning the house.
Exactly.
You don't stop it, you assist it.
Right.
Drink some Epsom salts, take some senna tea, clean the house, drink some water, stick your finger down your throat, something's trying to come out.
Get it out, right.
That's just brilliant wisdom that we have lost in all of that.
But what about the forced vaccination?
Forced vaccination.
I mean, is there anything that we could do as a people to...
Yeah, we need to stand up and get involved in self-government and protect our civil liberties. They're being stripped from us by that very community of healthcare.
Yeah.
And we have to step up and make sure that we do not vaccinate. They cause childhood leukemia, autism, and on and on and on and on. Why would you subject your child to that?
Yeah.
Being pregnant and having babies is not a disease that has to be dealt with. It's not even like that. That is not the truth. You know, in fact, the word vaccinate or vaccine, if you look it up in a pre-1940s dictionary, look up the word berry. The etymology is vicinium, which is where vaccinate comes from. It means berries. If you would eat raspberries, blueberries, huckleberries, any kind of berry, those typically occur in the springtime, which was the spring house cleaning. And you're vaccinating yourself against all kinds of problems. And one thing that hematologists, molecular biologists that are friends of mine at Cornell Medical have discovered because of lectures I've done, they go in, they check it out, and all of a sudden they go, wow. When you eat food in season, that's the key.
Right.
When you eat foods in season, the nutritional components of that food circulates in the bloodstream. 250,000 miles of tubing that runs off the heart. It circulates up to 1 year, up until that food's back that following year. Most people don't know that. They think if you eat an apple and it comes out in 72 hours, it's gone.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. Same with the pizza. Same with the bad stuff too. It stays in you.
It stays in as residues.
Exactly, and it leaves its energy signature in you.
It builds up, and the body produces mucus to try to carry it out, but it gets too thick. Now it's plaque. Now it's clogging arteries, covering the brain, shutting down pancreatic function, and they've done it themselves.
Yeah.
The disease doesn't come upon you.
Right.
You cause it.
Yeah.
And the beauty of knowing that is that you can uncause it.
Exactly.
By changing your behavior.
Stop the bread, stop the cheese.
Stop swallowing all the pills and capsules. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, thanks, Don. I mean, I could go on forever with this, and I'm sure we will do more of this. This is just an introduction to these people to show that we're joining forces, and
we are.
We need to all get together, and every one of us has a purpose. Every one of us is something to give to a puzzle. We need to connect together, and if it's not now, it's never. So I say we start, and if we can help you in any way or inspire you, please. Hopefully this helped. Thanks, Don. I really appreciate it.
I look forward to meeting you.
Your website is?
Love you, friend.
Wait, what's your website?
My website is dontolmanusa.com.
DONTOL.
MAN.
It's one L.
One L. Yeah.
And so check it out, and hopefully you'll be seeing more of us in a big way. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right.